Alright, y'all. Check this out. BCM Raider here, bringing you another Commander deck. Today, we have MiiRym, Sentinel Wurm. This is a Temur colored dragon deck. So what we're going to be doing is capitalizing on these very large flying lizards. So, let's get right into it. First up, we got Scalding Tarn, Misty Rainforest, Wooded Foothills. We got our Stomping Ground that we can go get, our Steam Vents, our Breeding Pool. Here's our check lands with Hinterland Harbor, Sulphur Falls, and Rootbound Crag. Now we have Cavern of Souls. Cavern of Souls is going to be very beneficial for us because we want our dragons to resolve and not be countered. Cavern of Souls will make your dragons uncounterable. Now we have Command Tower. That way we can produce whatever 3-color we need. Ketria Triumph, which does the same thing. It's also fetchable, but also if we need to draw a card, we can cycle this. Now we have City of Brass. For 1 life point, we can add whatever mana color we need. Next, we have Haven of the Spirit Dragon. This is a fun one because not only are we going to get whatever color we need, but also we can return a dragon if for some reason it got destroyed. Now we have Crucible of the Spirit Dragon. This is like a very niche storage land, but it'll provide us the colors that we need. And you can just, over time, keep putting storage counters on this, yada, yada, yada. And we can remove those counters to get a very large amount of mana when we need it. Next, we have Alchemist Refuge. This card is going to allow us to basically snipe in our dragon creatures on your opponent's turn when they're not expecting it. So this is really fun. Okay, we are running 8 forests, 8 mountains, and 4 islands. Okay, that's the land base. Let me know what y'all think of that land base in the comments below, if we could make some improvements there. But it's pretty cut and dry. Just get the colors you need, cast the dragon spells you need to. So, within that, let's move on to the artifacts. Of course, we're playing Sol Ring. We're playing Mana Vault, because we're going to need as much mana as possible. Our Arcane Signet. Now we have Dragon's Horde. This is a very cool mana rock because it's very flavorful for our dragon deck. But this is going to help us draw cards as well. Now we have Relic of Progenitus. Relic is only here to deal with your opponent's graveyards because we don't really care too much about our graveyard. But in a pinch, it's another card draw spell if we needed to. Next, we have Panharmonicon. Panharmonicon is going to be very powerful with what we're doing. because mostly all of our dragon creatures have some form of enter the battlefield trigger, and Panharmonicon is going to double that for us. Okay, let's get into those big ass flying lizards that we love. Right out the gate, we have Terror of the Peaks. This card is absolutely insane. This guy is going to generate so much damage with all the creatures entering that your opponents are probably going to die very quickly. And if they go to target this thing, they're just going to get lightning bolted. Alright, now we have Big Mama with Lathless Dragon Queen. This card's very powerful because every single time a non-token dragon enters under your control, we're going to get another 5/5 dragon token. And she's going to help us by making all our dragons even bigger. Next is a Tarka World Render. He's going to take our combat damage and double it. Because double striking, flying, trampling dragons just seems like where we want to be. Now we have Old Gnawbone. This guy is very powerful. For the simple fact of this doesn't just trigger for himself. This triggers whenever any creature you control deals combat damage to your opponents. And when you do that successfully, you're going to get that many treasure tokens. So, yeah. Have fun with all that mana floating around, kids. And to make even more mana for you, Ancient Copper Dragon. This guy's really good. Next, we have Hellkite Charger. This guy is going to help us with all that extra mana we have lying around. Why not have more combat phases? Now we have Scourge of Valkus. This, similar to Terror of the Peaks, is just going to continually keep dealing damage to wherever you need it. And he has fire breathing himself. Now we have Lozan, Dragon's Legacy. Oops. This is a relatively newer creature, but I can see the value with this because all of our spells pretty much are dragon spells, and this is just gonna deal damage to stuff, and that's pretty much what we want to do. Just start flinging damage around, attacking with very large creatures, and just going absolutely nuts. Next, we have a standard favorite with Thunderbreak Regent. This is going to give us a little protection with our dragons, because whenever your opponents target any of our dragons, they're going to take 3 damage. And because they're already taking a lot of damage already, they're going to be really hesitant to, target your stuff. Okay, now we have Astral Dragon. This is a fun dragon because it's going to create some tokens for us. Next, we have Udvara Hellkite. This is a very large, powerful dragon. Because similar to Astral Dragon, who's making 3/3 dragons, this guy is doing it bigger and better by giving us 6/6 dragon tokens. Now we have Corlessa, Scales Singer. She's going to be very beneficial for us by helping us try to find our dragon creatures. Next we have Earthquake Dragon. This thing costs 15 mana, but it's a 10/10. But it has a very large reduction, which is equal to the total mana value of dragons you control. And because we're going to have a lot of dragons out, chances are this thing is not going to cost 15. This might cost anywhere from, I don't know, 5 or 6 mana on rate. But there's still that potential that this would cost dramatically less than that. But not only that, we can sacrifice a land and return this back to our hand in case your opponents kill this. Okay, now we have Atsushi, the Blazing Sky. This guy is really fun because he's going to make some treasure tokens for us, but also he's going to allow us to play stuff from the top of our library. So there could potentially be even more dragon spells on top. He's going to help us. Now we have Scaled Nurturer. This is kind of like your mana dork with dragon, but this guy's going to gain us 2 life as well. Now we have Savage Ventmaw. This guy's going to give us a lot of mana every single turn. That way we can keep casting bigger and better things. Now we have some dragon creature cost reduction creatures with Dragonlord's Servant. He'll make our dragon spells cost 1 less. Next is Dragon Speaker Shaman. This is also a cost reduction, but this one's 2 less. Then we have Goblin Anarchomancer. This one's slightly better because he only cares about if the spell is red or green, but it's also a cost reduction. So effectively, we could have like a 7 or 8 total mana costing dragon, and we could get it down to basically 3 or 4 mana, which is insane. And a dragon deck would not be complete without the presence of Sarkhan in basically any form. But we're playing Sarkhan Soul Aflame because he's another cost reduction, and Sarkhan will become a dragon. And of course we're playing Spark Double. That way we can copy any more crazy, big, dumb dragons that we have lying around. Now, to capitalize on all these enter the battlefield triggers, we're playing Displacer Kitten. Now we have Adrix and Nev, Twin Casters. basically, they're here to help us create even more tokens. Now we have a couple Planeswalkers. First up is Kiora, Behemoth Beckoner. She's going to help us draw cards because most, if not all, of our creatures, their power is going to be 4 or greater. So you're going to be drawing cards a lot. But also, this will allow us to untap like a Gilded Lotus or some other creature with a very powerful activated ability. But also, this will allow us to untap certain lands that produce a lot of mana. So, if you guys go back to the land base, I'm going to make a very good suggestion for running that new Bloomburrow land, the tribal land. I think it's called like 3 Tree City or something like that. I'm not sure exactly. If you could leave that in the comments. Next, we have Sarkhan Unbroken, because we're gonna draw cards, add mana of the color we need, make more dragon tokens, and then eventually we're gonna go and search for every single dragon in our entire deck, and we're just gonna throw it on the battlefield. Fun times. Now we have Sarkhan Fireblood. I'm not sure how good this particular Sarkhan is in this deck, but the fact it costs 3 and hopefully it sticks around for a while, it seems good. But the fact that he'll add two mana for us and the potential of making 4 large dragon tokens for us, he seems okay. Okay, let's get into the enchantments. Of course, any dragon tribal deck wouldn't be complete without Dragon Tempest, because for the dragons that don't have haste, Dragon Tempest is going to give it that haste that we need, but also Dragon Tempest will deal a lot of damage to our opponents. And that's kind of the whole point of what we're doing here. Next, to ensure that all our creatures can attack the turn they come in, is Temur Ascendancy. But also, like I said before, since most of our creatures are going to be power 4 greater anyway, this will draw us a lot of cards. Next, we have Rhythm of the Wilds. This is probably the most efficient, aggressive enchantment that you can play, assuming you're in red and green. But the fact you're giving all your creatures the option of attacking that turn or getting bigger is basically second to none. But since we do have very expensive, very large creature spells, why not just pay 1 mana for it? Good old Sneak Attack. Don't really need to say much more about that. Okay, now we have Sylvan Library. Sylvan Library is going to be very good for us because we're going to need as many cards as possible. So why not do that every single turn? And of course we're in blue, and your opponents hate Rhystic Study, but you absolutely love Rhystic Study, and that's why you played it. because Rhystic Study is a blue commander staple. Next, we're going to continue to capitalize on these very large creatures coming into play with Garruk's Uprising. Because trample is very, very important, especially on very large creatures. That way your opponents can't just throw stupid 1/1 blockers in front of them and laugh. I've described this in the previous video about the differences between creatures with trample and creatures that don't have trample. Trample is very scary, and this is going to help us draw even more cards. And to continue to draw more cards, we have Elemental Bond. This one is going to scale a little better for us because we do have some creatures that aren't power 4 or greater, but it'll still trigger depending on if that creature's power is 3. We're just trying to cover all bases here. So, next we have Up the Beanstalk. This is a very efficient early game enchantment that's going to help us in every single turn. So expect to draw lots of cards with this deck. Okay, those were the enchantments. Let me know what y'all think of those. Let's get into the instants. Of course, we're playing blue, so we're going to need some kind of counterspell. Hey, there's a counterspell. Arcane Denial. That's a counterspell. But that's a counterspell that draws cards. Yay. Now we have Stubborn Denial. Stubborn Denial is very specific to this deck because we're almost always going to trigger the Ferocious. So in most situations, Stubborn Denial is going to be better than Counterspell. Because 2 blue mana is a lot more than 1 blue mana. Next, we have a Offer You Can't Refuse. I really like this counterspell. Because if you're playing against a opponent who gets really cocky and tries to jam out turn 1 Soul Ring into Signet, into Mana Crypt, like all that crazy C EDH level stuff, you can just be like, alright, cool, sweet, cool, counter it first turn, and then they're pretty much stuck the rest of the game. And then you run them over with a bunch of pissed off dragons. Seems like a good time to me. Okay. Now, we're going to need a way to go get these dragons. And what better way than Worldly Tutor? Cyclonic Rift. Shows up all the time. Because this is a blue commander staple. And your opponents hate this card. But you love this card. Because it gets rid of your opponent's stuff and not yours. Chaos Warp. As I've described before, you can deal with your opponent's stuff, or if you're feeling lucky, trade this in for a much better card. Next we have Pongify. That way we can deal with our opponent's creatures or commander. But also, we don't really care if we give your opponent a 3/3 because our creatures are way bigger. It is kind of a pissed off monkey, though. Next, we have Beast Within. Similar to Ponify, but, you know, this can hit any permanent. But also, in a weird way, you can kind of do that yourself if you really need that 3/3 creature. Okay, now we have Cloudless Will. This is a big splashy X spell. Basically, if you have a very large board and all your creatures fly, who cares? This is going to be a one-sided wrath for your opponent's stuff, because chances are they're not going to have too many flyers, if any at all. But also, you can destroy many, many, many artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. So, who doesn't love doing that? Now we have some little evasion and protection for our creatures with Fairy's Time Twist. So in the weird situation where your opponents go to kill your commander, you're just like, Teferi's Time Twist. Alright, cool, guess what? Now it's Bay. Now, when it returns, it's gonna come back in with a +1 counter on it. So now, your commander is back, it's not destroyed, and it's bigger, and it's even more pissed off. Good job, opponent. Okay. And to protect our entire board is Heroic Intervention. Well, because we're not running humans, because we like doing dragon stuff, we're going to make all our dragons even bigger. Or, we're just going to draw a crap ton of cards with Return of the Wildspeaker. Now we have Sarkhan's Triumph. This is basically a red demonic tutor for, you know, dragons. Because why not get the certain dragon you need that turn? Okay. We're going to need a way to produce a lot of mana very quickly. And what better way to do that than Jessica's Will? Nature's Lore. Because we're playing forest cards, and we need a lot of them out. 3 visits as well. Rampant Growth. Farseek. That's pretty much it for the ramp spells. But those should be suffice to have enough mana to cast these very large creatures. So those, in tandem with the cost reduction, you shouldn't have too much of a hard time throwing all these big ass dragons around. So next is Rishkar's Expertise, because we like drawing even more cards. Next, we have Blasphemous Act as a little more removal. And finally, we have Balaged Recovery. That way we can get back whatever we need to, but also It's a land. So, that was the deck tech for MiiRym Sentinel Wurm. Let me know what y'all thought about that deck tech, or if you guys have any suggestions on how we could improve this deck. So let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like these videos and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next deck tech.